Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Hearthstone. So we're working up the ranks as best as we can, trying to get 3 victories with the Shaman, 3 more victories with the Shaman to get 120 gold between these 2 quests, and then we'll have to get 3 victories with the Warrior later on. So what was weird about last recording is that the Hearthstone deck tracker did not show up originally, and it was here. I know it was here when I saw it, and so maybe right now in the menu you can't see it there. But as soon as I entered the game, it showed up. So maybe it had to reassert itself, like refresh itself before the recording started looking at. So I don't know right now if you can see this or not. Also, I said there was a new feature in Hearthstone, sadly, that said if you hovered over the items, you'd get the flavor text down here in the lower right. Turns out that was Hearthstone Deck Tracker 2, new feature. So that definitely activates adding more and more features. In fact, they've got one they're working on for like live video uploads of replays of your games, which I don't know if it's really necessary or needed to do that, but I honestly don't probably understand it enough. So as part of my effort here to have enough to talk about in each recording, I went back to my Twitter, where I get most of my news feed.
Hey, do you want to buy a funnel cake?
Most of the things I talk about are somewhat related to Twitter, or directly related to something happening in my own life, on my channel. So, Allison Road, the PT-inspired horror project that was on Kickstarter, got about 100,000 pounds, which I guess would be about $250,000 to $300,000 worth of Kickstarter money pledged before they pulled that Kickstarter, thus not taking any of that money and started working with Team 17, the creators of Worms World Party, Worms Armageddon. In fact, they recently released a game, Worms Weapons of Mass Destruction. So Allison Road was on Kickstarter. It got pulled because the single creator guy, I'm gonna call him kid, but I don't know his real age, and certainly his level of skill and quality was certainly not childish. It looked very good for at least an original demo using Unity or Unreal. So it gets pulled. He started working with them. Then they mysteriously had a falling out, and they canceled the project between the two of them. Oddly, at that point in particular, I would have thought that the original creator of the game would have said, I have every intention to still work on this, it may just take longer, or something like that. I wouldn't have thought that the original creator would have just stayed silent so long. Or anytime. I would have been immediately on Twitter myself if I had a falling out with him. I imagine that there's only 2 things you can really assume. That Team 17 either maliciously bought out, started to work with this guy, just either to keep him from releasing the game around the time their latest Worms game was about to be released, which it was nowhere close to that, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. That doesn't seem like that could be a reason. Or they honestly were going into the thing, but they wanted to take complete control away from him and the original creator, and the original creator didn't like that. Or they wanted the original creator to work at a level of efficiency that he probably is not capable of, and they wanted to give him like really long deadline. I mean, those are the only things I could think Is it either they just maliciously bought it so they could never publish it?
Ha, this guy's
The
toast.
video game industry doesn't do a lot of that. Other industries sometimes do that, but not the video game industry. It's too expensive to do things like that. So I imagine they thought it was maybe further along, or they, in some other way, felt that he needed to do a lot more work than what they realized. I assume that the Kickstarter is probably going to show right back up, and it's a weird position now because it's like this one guy who really wants to do it. Maybe their legal team came back and told them that, frankly, you just can't make a game anything like this because you'll just get sued by Konami. I mean, that they're chomping at the bit to sue people. I would suspect that Konami trying to make money everywhere and anywhere it can find. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was a part of it, at least. That they were just going to say it was too much of a legal item. But the guy's come back now and he says it was canceled, but I'm starting development back on it, which is a little bit flippant. I mean, and it kind of points to maybe his level of maturity. I like to follow this guy's YouTube channel, the developer for Yandere Simulator, which is this game that's in development where you play as this girl that's obsessed with this guy, and just Japanese girl obsessed with this Japanese guy. She's crazy on top of that, so she's going to basically try to eliminate any other girls that show any interest in that guy by usually murdering him. So that's kind of where it's coming from, and that interesting beginning of a setup also helps continue grow interest in what would otherwise be just a kind of average single developer in the indie game project. But I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, it's subjective, but I'm pretty sure he's never actually going to finish the game. And the reason that became apparent, because I was watching him for at least a couple of months before this came up, he simply can't work with others. He refuses to get a secretary to look at his emails, and then he complains that he's getting tons of emails of people offering to help and people that have questions and such, and it's like, all those things are good things. You want people interested. You want people emailing you, even if it's just going to go through a secretary who's going to respond to everything. Any person at a public-facing anything is almost certainly going to need a secretary. It's just how it works. And people seem to not realize that. You as one person versus the entire internet of billions of people is, or probably not billions, but people that are going to email you is going to be ridiculous. Even an average person who has a Google account has some automated secretary there. You have things that put spam in the spam folder at the very least, and if you're using any filters or anything else, that stuff is there. You have to be as efficient as possible. So if you won't get a secretary, you won't really work with a team. He's obviously not going to be able to finish it. And I fear it sucks, because it may very well have been the best thing if Team 17 had been able to just wrangle Allison Rhodes away from him and given him a simple task on it that doesn't really matter, or just give him production credits, created by. In the movie industry, as awful as the movie industry is, it is probably a good thing that the original writers of a lot of movies do get their story bought from them and taken away from them, sadly. They don't keep their copyright to the stories. Which I assume means if you ever read a novelization of a movie, that's the big movie company making all that money. But that kind of isn't even the point. My point is that it's probably a good thing when wiser people decide to come out and say, look, you need help, but we need you not to be in control of this. I've seen a lot of projects and a lot of things get destroyed because it's somebody's baby and they just refuse to let other people add to it. And I kind of wonder if that's the case here. Now, it's a slightly different case with the Allison Road creator. He seems like he feels like he might be a little bit of a depressive type person, too quickly to give up. There's definitely ways you could look at this and say, well, he wasn't willing to do, he may have not been willing to do the amount of work that Team 17 wanted from him, and that's why they had the falling. And then when he had the falling out, he just allowed them to cancel it. One more victory and I'll get to rank 18. Maybe we'll keep going. We might as well keep going until we get dangerously close to losing rank 18. So it feels like he may have been a little bit depressive and said, fine, forget it, which is not something he should have done. Making video games is sadly a lot of work, too much work, a lot of overtime, and you have to be passionate about it. And if he's not passionate, if he's so easily discouraged, then that project's not going to get finished because you're going to have discouragement in any project. So Allison Road is back in development. I am extremely super cautiously optimistic there. And the tiniest amount of optimism that is back on the plate. But I wouldn't be surprised if Team 17 isn't making some kind of game that's somewhat similar in secret back there. I wouldn't be surprised if there were several other people making secretly similar games to that. The concept of PT is quickly losing its necessary relevance, because if Resident Evil 7 comes out and it's more PT than that playable teaser was, which is very possible since that Resident Evil 7 is going to be just longer, then the next thing to emulate won't be PT, it will be Resident Evil 7. And then you're going to have to copy that and add your own twist to that. And as we move forward and keep improving with new games, we're going to... copying PT may be too late. It may be too late already. Let's see. Whenever your opponent plays a card, summon a random legendary minion. There we go. So, but it's surprising it came back. I kind of thought that was all of it. Alright, let's talk about the PlayStation for a little bit here. So, the PlayStation 4 Slim exists. There's really nothing when these Slim versions come out that matters too much. They just generally are better versions of things to purchase. They'll take up less space and let's see. They'll generally take up less space. And do I want to kill this guy? I think I need to kill this guy. Yep. And and run a little bit better, probably have a slightly less slightly less failure rate. Sometimes the fans can be a little bit quieter because they've realized that they didn't need to be as loud as they were originally. Oh man, I could have played that instead. So it exists. Good to know. I'm toying around with the idea of at some point getting an Xbox One and PlayStation 4, but it's almost certainly at this rate going to be only for playing Blu-rays or for some retrospective old games for the PlayStation 4. And actually, there aren't that many games, so that kind of makes no sense at all. It really doesn't, does it? So I'm toying around with the idea, but even as I think about it, it makes no sense. However, another thing about the PlayStation Network, and these next two things are PlayStation Network, PlayStation Plus in particular. Oh darn, I'm not going to keep my win streak going. That's a shame. If you can get like a really lucky win streak where you just keep getting those extra stars, I think you could get up to rank 1 or legendary in a pretty fast amount of time. But you have to be a better player than I think even some of the best players are, because they are so... This game is so designed around winning at most slightly above 50% of the time. You have to be some of the top players to be able to beat everybody else consistently. So, No Man's Sky has had a lot of disappointings. It has created a lot of disappointment in a lot of players. It sometimes doesn't run on PlayStation 4 for some people. Some people have epilepsy issues with it. Some people just don't like it. Some people don't feel they were lied to. So apparently, though, on the PlayStation Plus, anything short of a defective product will not get refunded. So that's to say, if you don't like the game but it runs, you can't get a refund. If you have epilepsy issues with it but it runs, you can't get a refund. If you felt they lied to you and you haven't played any of it at all, but it runs, you can't get a refund. It is ridiculously a lot of questions asked. So, in comparisons to Steam's no questions asked refund policy, which only a couple years ago this whole situation was reversed. I mean, Steam would not give you refunds without dancing through a lot of things. At least PlayStation would sometimes give you refunds. Now it's gone the exact opposite, and it's PlayStation that's the worst. I'm not sure about Xbox One's refund policy. I guess it's not as bad. So PlayStation One's questions asked policy is bad, and it got very highlighted when a arguably bad game like No Man's Sky comes out and people want their money back. And it's really ridiculous that they have this policy, because the refund can always come in the form of store credit, and you really don't have to limit that too much.
Job's done.
You probably need to flag a few accounts that if somebody's constantly playing a game for its full duration and you can prove that, and then asking for a refund, then buying the next game with that store credit refund, and then playing that and asking for a refund, that's kind of the only real issue there. As long as you're not giving a full amount of money. And this certainly gets a lot worse because I have heard several stories of people being told just deal with your bank, and if you deal with your bank and dispute the charges, then we'll lock out your PlayStation account, and then you lose access to all your games. So it's just this entire screw job, and we can't call it anything more than that. Sony is losing money hand over fist in every other department, particularly in their movie departments. I believe.
Hurry up! Portals online!
Certainly. The new Ghostbusters 26 reboot didn't make enough of a profit. If they did the new Ben-Hur movie, that just came out and made a ridiculously tiny amount of money, and it's already a failure in the first weekend. Sony has been losing money over the Spider-Man series every single time. They do worse and worse. So Sony's a huge company, and they're losing a lot of money. They're not really making money on their TVs. They're not really making money on their Blu-rays. The only thing that they are making is the video games, and then they're gonna treat people badly with a terrible refund policy. It's bad. And so they're treating people badly. PlayStation Plus and online play used to not cost anything on Sony, so they really, I mean, that's kind of the thing is Sony, in rare occasions, knows the right thing to do. It just doesn't stick to the right thing to do. I mean, by all rights, they should have won this generation out of the gate, because Xbox One was just, Microsoft wanted to do the always online DRM sharing, all kinds of stuff like that. It's like they wanted to do all this horrible stuff, and all Sony had to do is say, we're just going to keep on doing the things that we keep on doing, and they won the argument for a little while, but then they still haven't locked in that victory like they could have if they were just a little bit innovative and good at treating customers right. So, like, screwing your customers and making them play for online. Neither ones should you have to pay to play online. Steam, you don't pay to play online at all. PCs, you don't pay to play online. Maybe Uplay or some service like that does that, but no, because Uplay is free to sign up an account. So if you're paying anything, it's just your email address is what you're paying. So yeah, they treat people badly. And all of this just gets wrapped up very nicely. PlayStation Plus' price is going up. So even if I did get a PlayStation 4, even if I did get an Xbox One, I'm not sure I'd ever pay for any of those services again. So I don't know how many of the digital things I could even get. Maybe I couldn't get them in any. So that's PlayStation stuff, I guess. And I guess that will move us into the next topic, which, see, I'm looking at the next topics on my whiteboard. I need to talk about something, put the whiteboard down, play the game a little bit, pick the whiteboard back up. These little delays are actually necessary if I'm going to do 3 recordings. So a couple of recordings ago, there was this little icon here. Turns out it was a Cthulhu counter. There's another counter for another Old Gods cards. So instead of having to count yourself how powerful your opponent's Cthulhu is, you can use the Cthulhu counter. It's all of what Hearthstone Rank Tracker does is very possibly considered cheating. You can argue it, because it's giving you perfect memory, whereas the other player is going to have to memorize whatever this stuff. I don't pay enough attention to it that it actually helps me at all. But I could see how the Cthulhu counter particularly would, if I was trying to get that exact amount down to the right number. But I turned it off. I don't think we can have a specific icon for Cthulhu's as they add more and more cards that are going to have counters and stuff. If they put it somewhere down here or somewhere over here on the opponent's deck, if I had the opponent's deck go up and show, that would have been alright, but I didn't like it on the side, so I turned it off. It was an option, so it's a good thing that's an option. That's what a deck tracker program is certainly going to have to be. It's going to have to be full of options. It's going to get very complicated. I need to now redo my setting up Hearthstone deck tracker video, but if I did, I'd have to have a fresh install of Windows to do it. So I don't know how I could really do that. Maybe I could do it on my laptop. Next topic, though, I did want to talk about. If we want to talk about companies that treat you bad, here I'm trying to make a transition. Let's see how this works. And companies and video games. A company that treats you horribly is definitely Facebook. They don't. Every now and then I'll get a pop-up on Facebook that says, asks for a survey, and it says, the first question always is, Facebook cares about its customers. And I say, extremely disagree, and it goes, thank you, and that's it, and it throws out that response. Because the way these surveys work, they manipulate the data to say whatever they want. And so even if you do this survey and want to give an opinion that's something they don't want to hear, they'll find ways to throw you out. So if you extremely agree or extremely disagree, it immediately gets thrown out. So you have to go neutral or slightly disagree, slightly agree on everything. And even then they may throw you out. Because they just want to hear what they want to hear and do whatever they want to do. That's just the truth of it, and it's why Facebook doesn't ever really improve. It's because there's sadly, CEOs, management of companies, people that run companies, they just want yes men. They just want to be told what they want to hear. They don't want. So, I guess we'll end it a little bit early here, about 3 minutes early. We made some good progress here. I may make 4 recordings today. I may just keep on going. You know? Instead of playing this off screen, I might as well just keep going until I run out of things to talk about. Maybe in the next recording I will run out of things. Anyways, Facebook is working with Unity so that it will be easier to publish games on Facebook. Yay. That's what I'm sure most people want, is more Facebook games. I block all that stuff. It doesn't show up by default anymore. Yes, there is a small group of people that probably still play Facebook games like Farmville, but in all honesty, I bet a lot of them have moved on to cell phone games themselves. So, yay, I'm being sarcastic. Last thing I want Facebook to do is make games, and they already have the Oculus Rift and are probably slowly ruining that. Not that VR is going to succeed at this point. I think it's proven itself to be a fad. So, yeah. That's where I'm going to end this recording. It's like, no, I don't want Facebook games. I think most people agree here. And I wish Oculus Rift was not owned by Facebook, and that they were actually making some progress there. And that maybe in 4 or 5 years, when those things are cheap enough to actually be owned by a regular gamer, there might actually be some games there that it works with. But anywho, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps out. If you want to support me further, you can click on my name, Rydo, On the right is a blue button. It says support this channel. Click it, make a donation. And if you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.